God is so faithful and he is so thorough in the way that he blesses us. And when God has a plan and when he has made a covenant for us, he will always keep his covenants, and we can believe in him. We can trust in him. We can move in him and know that everything is going to work out exactly the way that he said it. So when it feels like the dream is going to die, when it feels like the vision is going away, continue to trust the Lord, and whatever it is, it will come to pass. As always, it's such a pleasure to be here for the Sanctuary Sunday School. And I'm so excited because we're preparing for our second year anniversary. I cannot believe that time has passed that quickly. You have been amazing. This ministry has blessed me, I think, more than anyone else. And if this is your first time tuning in, go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, and stick around with us till our next year's anniversary. So we're going to have a new set and all kinds of things coming through. And I just appreciate you. And this week's subject is sons for Isaac. And as I said in the other video, I left my notes at home and I was trained that you're supposed to study your lesson so well that even if your notes blow away, you can still deliver. So that's what I'm going to do today. So if you see anything, you see any mistakes, something I left out, please let me know. Comment it, send it to me, because we want to make sure that everybody gets what they need out of this lesson. So we are talking about Isaac, and we're here. And we started the story with Abraham, Isaac, and now we're down to Isaac's son. And we talked about the marriage of Isaac and Rebekah on last week, and now we're talking about the birth of their sons. And the first thing that we see here is that Rebekah was barren. Now remember, Isaac's mother was barren as well, Sarah, and now Rebekah is barren. Isaac married Rebekah at 40 years old, and he was 60 when she finally gave birth. That's 20 years that they went without children. And as I said a few weeks ago, to be barren in that time, day and age, even today, there's a certain stigma associated with it. People start asking, which I think is totally rude, why haven't you all had any kids yet? You should never ask that question, because you never know what's going on. But she went through that, and she was not able to have kids. And back then it was like, if you don't bear children, you're almost useless as a woman. That's kind of the way that culture was. And we see that God took them through being barren in order to work a miracle for them through them. And that's something that I took as a lesson, because sometimes your trial is only a setup for God to do something miraculous for you. And even during those times when it feels like you're forsaken or you're forgotten, trust God, believe God, honor God, obey God, and let him, watch him work it out for you. So we see that she conceived the son. She conceived twin boys, and she was there. And the word says that they started to wrestle with each other in the womb. And of course, if you ever carried a child, you can feel that movement. And so she went to the Lord and she said, Lord, what is going on? What is this feeling? And this is something right here, because God answered her. And for anyone who is a mother or anyone in general, you want to live your life in such a way that you can go to God and get the answers that you need. Especially in this day and age, people will tell you a whole bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, the people who know the least talk the most. So you need to talk to God and ask God what is going on and ask God what to do. So that's what Rebekah did. She went to God and she's like, what is going on in my womb? And he told her, he said, you have two nations in your womb, and one nation is going to rule the other nation. The youngest nation, the nation of your younger child, is going to be the most powerful one. So we see that this conflict between these two brothers started in the womb. And this was something that was different from the customs, because typically the eldest child got the blessing or the biggest inheritance. But he said, I'm going to do something different. Your younger son is going to be greater. So God had already prophesied what was going to happen. So she knew as she carried these children. It says that even when they were born, if they came out, Esau came out first. His name was Esau, and the second son's name was Jacob. Esau came out first, and it says that Jacob was holding on to his foot, when he came out. So again, they came out in the struggle. And it says that Esau was red and he was hairy. And that Jacob, he was just kind of a milder, gentle type. Esau was a hunter, and he hunted venison. And that Jacob, he kind of dwelt among the tents. So they were brothers. They looked different. Jacob had smooth skin. They looked different. They acted different. They had different traits, but they were twin brothers. And God had something for each of them to do. And it says that Isaac loved Esau and he ate of his venison, and that Rebekah loved Jacob. Now we can see a problem brewing right there, and we'll get into that in subsequent lessons. But we see, one had one favorite and one has another favorite, so we can see some problems there. But right now we're looking at the birth of these sons, which is a fulfillment of the promise of God. When he told, we're looking at now, we have our three founding fathers. You will hear throughout the entire Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are what I would call the big three, because it is from this lineage where this nation just bloomed and prospered. And not only that, not just nation, like the promised Abraham, nations. When you look at the entire Middle East region and all of those nations, and we're going to go all the way back when we talked about Abraham and Lot, when his name was Abram. So these are all of these different people that you have. You have Abraham, and then there was Abraham's descendants. Then there's Lot's descendants. That's a whole nother people. Now for Abraham, now you have Ishmael's descendants, and now you have Isaac's descendants. So this is another branch. And now we have Isaac, and Isaac has had twin sons. So now those are two more nations. So now you're going to have Jacob's descendants, and you're going to have Esau's descendants. And these are all nations. And all of these people, and God has blessed all of these people. Yes, there is a lot of unrest in that area, but they are also prosperous. That's where the nation's oil supply is. That's why there's so much fighting over there. A lot of the fighting, it is internal conflicts that we see happening right here in these passages, where there was animosity at birth and there was favoritism. But some of the conflict over there is outside interests coming in, trying to exploit them for their land, because it's rich in oil, minerals, and jewels. And we have to be careful. And that's why it's so important to understand the word of God and to know your history. It's not enough to just run and holler and not know nothing. You got to know what's going on. And as we look at the political climate today, and I'm seeing things happening that's very disturbing when you have people in power who don't understand history and don't know how things have to go, leading you lead your country in a direction toward disaster. So even as church people, as saints of God, we have a responsibility to know what's going on and vote and make wise decisions, so that we don't end up in a situation where our country has to fall because we have made bad decisions and putting the wrong people in office and doing the wrong thing. And I have studied the Bible my entire life, and it's one thing I know. You need to leave God's people alone. When it comes to Abraham and his kinspeople and his seed, you don't want to be found on the other side against them. And so this is where we see all of this was being established. And I love these series, and I've taught this series over and over again. And every time it is just so soul stirring, because when you see the beginning of this people and you see how faithful God has been and how he has consistently taken care of them, how he has consistently delivered on every single promise. One of my favorite songs is He's Able. God will do just what he said he will do. Every promise, he's going to keep it for you. All you have to do is trust him. And so I know that if God did this for them, then he's going to do it for me, because God is a God of everybody, and he has no respect of persons. And so when I look at this and when I read this, I can't help but trust God. I can't help but love God. And that's why Sunday school is so close to my heart, because I love to worship. I love to praise. I love to sing. I love to dance. I love a good service. And I say this all the time. None of that saved me. I did not get saved until I was sitting in Sunday school and I was listening to these lessons, and I would see what God was requiring, and I would see how faithful God was and what he was doing for the people that served him. And I said, I want that. I want to live like that. I want the blessings of God on my life. He's the same God. Whatever it is, give it to him. Give your life to the Lord. I say this all the time. We are living in the last and evil days. It's time to get saved. If one person watches these videos and decides, like I did, if they learn something enough like I did, and they learn how to live and they decide to give their life to the Lord, that is all I need. And I have faith to know that there are enough people out there who will give, who will continue, who will help me keep this going. Because I said a few weeks ago, I'm going to do this full time. Ever since I started these broadcasts, I keep encountering people who really need something, people who weren't in church and people who are in church. And God has told me to teach his word. And if I teach, he's going to take care of me. If I teach, God is going to send somebody to send something and make sure what a servant is worthy of his hire. So that's why we have to step out on God. And when we talk about these covenants, man, and I love the word covenant, this agreement, because a covenant goes two ways. God kept his covenant with Abraham through his son Isaac, and now through Isaac's twin boys, Jacob and Esau. So we have a responsibility to keep his covenant, our covenants with him. My covenant with God is to teach his word and to continue the Sanctuary Academy. You have a covenant too. You have a responsibility, and make sure that you do what God says. And like Rebekah was barren, and you may be going through a season in your life where you feel barren. It feels like you can't produce anything. Everything that you're trying to do is not working. Nothing is coming up for you. You're not feeling like you're not reaping anything, and you're sowing. Keep sowing, keep going, keep reaping, because God is always going to come through, and whatever it is that he had placed in you, that seed, that gift, it's still there and it's still growing. And in due season, when it's your time, God will bless, and he's always going to do what it is that he said he's going to do. And you've got to be faithful, just like Isaac and Rebekah. You can't go off and do things your own way and give up on the promise. You've got to hold on to God. It says, sons for Isaac. Can you imagine the joy that Isaac and Rebekah felt when they finally got these twin boys after 20 years of being married and not having a child? Have you ever had a situation that you just went through for a long time and finally it was resolved? That feeling of joy, that feeling of hope, that feeling of deliverance, it just makes you want to run on. And the old people used to sing a song, I believe I'll run on and see what the end is going to be. You can't stop. You can't give up. Your blessing is there. Your breakthrough is there. Keep going. Keep doing it. Believe the Lord. And just like Isaac and Rebekah got what they wanted, God is going to give you the desires of your heart, and he's going to use you for the purpose that he created you for. And that's the key right there. Submit to the will of God. I'm going to just make this plea today. Submit to the will of God. Give it to God. Let go of your will and what you want. Ask God what he wants. Lord, what would you have me to do? Say yes to the Lord. Surrender to the Lord and allow him to use you. You have been in church, somebody just said, let him use you. Let him use you and allow him to work miracles in your life. He is a wonder-working Savior, and he is a wonder in my soul. And if you don't remember anything else, remember that God always keeps his promises.